Welcome back to the next video for concepting Lancelot from Chaos Card. So today what I've done is take the final thumbnail I had for him and then increase the size a little bit. And right now what I'm doing is turning on symmetry and doing a really rough symmetrical sketch of him. So this is meant to be a guide for our 3D modelers. Which is why instead of doing a fancy hero pose or something really cool looking, it's just going to be kind of a front pose where the modeler can accurately depict the character and use it as a reference in their program of choosing. Photoshop finally added a symmetry feature recently, which is really nice and handy for this. So instead of just drawing half and then mirroring, it just does it in real time now, and you can place the symmetry line wherever you want. Obviously some parts of him are still asymmetrical, so we're going to turn the symmetry off for things like his arms. And this is just to kind of go from the thumbnail stage and into a really rough, larger sketched version of him. This is where I can also start to iron out some of the details that might have been obscured in the fact that this was really just originally a silhouette. Doing things like being sure both legs are front facing really help out anyone who wants to use this image as a reference further down the pipeline. That way they aren't confused about if parts of his armor are supposed to look a certain way and it's really just because it's at an odd angle or something. Here we're also thinking about gauntlet structure a little bit more and what kind of detail would be on it, since it was just all blacked out in the silhouette. Changing the tabard shape here. It didn't look as good when I had lined it all out as it did in the silhouette, so still making some design decisions here. And again, just referencing some of the real life armor examples and getting all those details in where they weren't included in the basic silhouette. And then it's always good to zoom out and see what your work looks like from a bit of a distance. It's good to keep yourself distanced from it, or sometimes even to just let your work sit for a little bit and then come back to it with fresh eyes. That way you can more easily see and define problem areas. So here's where you just start fine-tuning and changing things. and then defining the fact that we want his eyes to glow from inside his helmet. And then again, going in and looking at all the smaller details that we want to add. Messing with the shoulder a lot here because it wasn't defined clearly how it functioned in the silhouette. And now here I've started to do the actual line artwork over the sketch that I had just done. So you can see the outside lines are much more defined. They're thicker weight compared to all the detailing that's in a thinner line weight on the inside. So here I have the symmetry turned off, and I'm going in and doing all the asymmetrical parts of the design now. And then finishing up the other arm and the gauntlet. Line art is something I personally have to take a little more time and attention to do, because it's not necessarily my favorite portion of doing character designing, so I go a lot slower, and I'm a little more particular about how I'm doing this, and just taking the extra time to refine and sculpt your lines can make a huge difference. Also, just thinking about things like your line weights and having all of the outside defining lines being thicker than all the details on the inside. Especially since we're going for kind of a more cartoony look. But again, this also makes it a little bit easier for anyone who's going to be using this front view as a reference later on. Changing up the detail on the gauntlet a little bit here. Paying a little more attention to the line weights because some of that's going to be fancy VFX. For specific things like the gauntlets and any more complicated heraldry on him, you would want to do a separate reference sheet for those with callouts. So you would take the gauntlets or any insignias on him and kind of lay them out in a way where everything is broken down so the person modeling can really understand how these forms work. Again, the biggest thing with lines is being sure that you go in and sculpt them out to make them look exactly how you want them to. So that usually means going in with an eraser and sometimes thinning out any of the thicker lines you have to create variation in line weight. Which I do down here on these straps. And that's the finished Lancelot. So here is just the part where I end up going in a little bit more, refining his finished line work. I let him sit a little bit so I could fully digest all the line work that I did, and now I came back and can see all the areas that need to be touched up and changed. Again, going in and adding some more details grounded in reality. And then the last step to do when we're done with line work here is to just go ahead and outline with darker gray and then fill in the line work. So what I'm doing here is just using a regular pencil and going in and outlining around all the lines. I'm not worrying if it's sloppy or anything, and then just kind of paint bucket filling it in, and then just going around and doing a little bit of edge cleanup where the gray goes outside the lines. And then filling in more delicate areas by hand.
Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Baka Bros Entertainment for more updates on our game development videos. And just remember, keep on developing, bros.